It happened again this week. Monday, a boy armed with a knife threatened a class of 20 students near Seattle. No one was hurt, but on the same day, Kansas police arrested a 14-year-old who built a bomb and threatened his school. After Columbine, the United States Secret Service wondered whether its unique expertise could help prevent assaults on our schools. It assigned the team that usually analyzes threats against the president to analyze the young men who come to class to kill. Now they believe they have an approach powerful enough to stop a massacre. The service and the Department of Education are putting what they've learned into a training program for your neighborhood school. You'll see it for the first time tonight. Can it stop these assaults? Chances are it already has.
You may very well have averted a massacre.
I sincerely believe that.
Arthur Kelly is police chief in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It's a small city where an attack on the high school was the last thing the cops were looking for. But in November, 5 teenagers were charged in an alleged plot to detonate bombs in the school and shoot the students who ran outside. One of the kids allegedly bragged they were going to out-Columbine Columbine. How did New Bedford uncover the plot before it was too late? Kelly says it's because the Secret Service allowed his town to be one of the first to see the new draft report entitled Threat Assessment in Schools. One of the key findings in the report is that school shooters almost always tell others what they're planning. So Kelly's officers in the school were trained to listen and take threats, no matter how incredible, seriously.
You had a student who heard something and told what she knew.
More than one. More than one.
And then you had a janitor who was sharp enough that when he found a note, he knew what to do with it.
Knew what to do with it. That's correct.
It's all about the communication.
It's communications, being aware.
The awareness that may have saved New Bedford High is described in this 2-year study that will soon be available to every school. It says that most of the school shooters follow the same path. They're motivated by revenge. They're isolated. They feel cut off from adults, and many contemplate suicide. The research indicates that they plot their attacks for months, almost never express a direct threat against their target, but as in New Bedford, they almost always tell someone something about the attack in advance. The Secret Service team learned all of this by going to the source. They studied 37 cases and went into the prisons to interview many of the school shooters themselves. Among those they talked to was Luke Woodham, who in 1997 killed his mother and then 2 students at Pearl High School in Mississippi.
Did that solve any problems for you?
No. It's real hard to live with the things I've done. In my life, things had never been okay. It never seemed like anybody cared. Never. I couldn't find a reason not to do it.
We looked in particular.
These Secret Service interviews are the heart of a seminar being developed by the service and the Department of Education to train teachers and cops. This is the first look at the program that Secret Service Director Brian Stafford says can stop an attack before it starts.
We could use some of our methods, some of the same Secret Service methods that we use to protect the president to help prevent future attacks in our schools.
We talked to 5 authors of the research, Secret Service consultants Robert Fine and Brian Voskuil, and psychologists Bill Pollack, Randy Borum, and Marisa Reddy.
What we found was that there is no accurate or useful profile of a school shooter. These kids ran the gamut of demographic and descriptive and background characteristics. Some were as young as 11, some were as old as 21. Some had been doing incredibly well in school, had been on the honor roll, had been taking advanced placement courses. Some had not been doing well.
These kids did not just suddenly snap. The targeted violence was the end result of a process of thinking, of planning, in many cases of communications to others.
Randy, when we hear about one of these terrible incidents, a lot of people think those kids are psychotic. They're mentally ill.
That's not the findings from our study. For someone to be psychotic, you would suggest that They had lost touch with reality, hearing voices, experiencing false fixed beliefs like delusions. It didn't appear to be a primary causal factor in motivating the attack.
But there were common motivations. Most shooters were overwhelmed by feelings of failure and depression, feelings provoked by other kids in school. One of the key findings in the report is that a lot of these kids were subjected to merciless bullying in school.
Bullying and teasing is a national scourge across America, and it happens in schools every day. Over 100,000 kids each day won't go to school because they're afraid of being bullied. And boys talk about the fact that their lives have been made so miserable, they'd rather be dead, or in some cases hurt others, than be bullied again.
And in what may be the biggest surprise in the study, the team found that the planning for the attacks is rarely a secret. Just like at Columbine, most attackers told other students something about what they were planning and wrote about their rage. Listen to what one young man wrote just days before he pulled the trigger.
They want me to open up, express myself. Quite a funny notion, ironic. If someone had helped me do just that a couple of years ago, I probably would have turned out okay. And then later on he writes, my assault on the school is the only thing I live for. I want to laugh at the pain I cause these fools. Personally, I'll be glad to die because living my life has been the greatest hell I could imagine.
You don't know what's going on inside my head. You don't know anything about my problems. I can handle my own problems.
This angry teenager is all the school shooters wrapped into one. He's part of that seminar for teachers. They call him Jeff. He's an actor who's been trained with everything they've learned in the school shooter study.
Do I have a reason to be worried here?
Yeah, you should be worried about the kind of crap that goes on in this school and about how all those goddamn kids think that they're so much better than me and everybody else is like me.
Barry Spodak and David Swink are psychotherapists who normally teach Secret Service agents how to interview potential assassins. Spodak plays the role of an adult in the school, trying to figure out whether Jeff is just angry or truly dangerous.
You know, Jeff, you're painting a pretty dark picture here.
It's just how reality is.
All right, let's freeze there. Obviously, it's going to take a while in this interview to establish some rapport, even if it's possible to.
Over the summer, they will run seminars like this all over the country to show teachers how to spot the signs that a kid poses a true threat. Rod Page, the Secretary of Education, intends to put the Secret Service study on the department's website and make a guidebook available to every school in the land.
Mr. Secretary, there have been lots of studies and approaches dealing with school violence, but your department feels that the Secret Service approach is best. Why so?
There have been a lot of studies, but none like this. This is going to be of enormous benefit for us.
Do you think it's likely that this book, this Secret Service book, produced with the Department of Education, may be the most important book in school next year?
I think we can make a strong case that it might be, because I really believe safety is our first concern, safety above all else. We've got to create a safe environment in order for students to learn and for teachers to teach.
The guidebook will tell teachers about the warning signs. For example, most of the boys in the study were having trouble dealing with a recent personal failure. And in one of the most striking results from the research, virtually every one of the school shooters said they had no trusting relationship with an adult. Not one. Dennis McCarthy is looking for those isolated kids in the Blue Valley schools outside Kansas City. He's the head of security, and he also got an advanced look at the Secret Service research because he was once a Secret Service agent. That's him with the dark hair and glasses in front of President Reagan.
In my career in the Secret Service, there's no doubt in my mind the hundreds of people I interviewed, I know in my heart I stopped violent acts. In this job, in the last semester, there were over 50 incidents that I was called into by building administrators to investigate.
How many of those do you really believe could have erupted into serious violence in one of your schools?
I think 4 or 5 of those were in the category that could have become very violent.
McCarthy is already following the research, making sure that every kid has an adult they can talk to.
You know, probably in talking to your own children, it's, you know, how was your day at school? And it's always, oh, okay.
Fine.
Fine. But to catch kids off guard, to catch them when they want to talk and let them talk. And if you have to listen for a long time, the diamonds are in there somewhere, but you have to let them talk.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And that's what brought the teachers out of their seats at the Department of Education rehearsal. They've been given a checklist of the warning signs identified in the research. Now they're listening for those clues and watching psychotherapist Barry Spodak try to find common ground with Jeff.
But I think you're facing some pretty painful things here, and I don't want you to feel that you have to face them alone.
Did you see Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that, I guess, you know, like Gandalf. He had to face things by himself.
You know, Jeff, Gandalf in the movie, he dies.
There are worse things than dying.
Let's freeze there. More concern? There may be some possible suicide thoughts here.
But they're making a connection now, though.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There's something happening.
There's something happening, which is possibly good.
It was that kind of connection that allowed them to foil the plot at New Bedford High in Massachusetts last year. Police Chief Arthur Kelly says that the Secret Service study helped the teachers, administrators, and cops change their whole approach to school security.
The study pointed out that you needed to do your homework. For the police to be effective, they had to work on the prevention side or the intervention side before the violence occurred. And that's what the report got us ready to do.
Looking at what happened in New Bedford, what did they do right?
They had a team approach already put in place. Before a crisis emerged, they had sat down, school principals and administrators with local law enforcement, to partner up and say, how can we approach this problem together?
Since these kids don't just snap, since this is a process, there are ways, we think, for responsible adults to intervene and prevent this very rare kind of violence.
What is the single thing that an educator can take from this study and make a difference in their school tomorrow?
That there's no secret to being a good, connected teacher. If you know what your students feel, there won't be school shootings and there won't be boys and girls of desperation. It isn't rocket science, it's connection. Connection, connection.